August 6, 2021 is officially the 35th anniversary for the Metroid franchise, and we saw Nintendo not only acknowledge it, but even give us new Metroid Dread info. And I want to talk about Nintendo's marketing and branding around Dread as a whole, what we can expect with that title, and really what this means for the future of the Metroid franchise going forward. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. As I mentioned, guys, we were talking about Metroid Dread today, and really Metroid as a whole, as it is at the time of filming this video the exact 35th anniversary from the original NES release, and that is a crazy number to think that Metroid has been around for 35 plus years. But it's also crazy to see Nintendo finally give this franchise the love and attention it deserves with the media marketing ramp up to Metroid Dread, as we are seeing almost daily or every other day they're tweeting out something about this game. They're adding in pieces to the lore to try to inspire fans to go back and play the first 4 games that you can play, which, oh, by the way, Nintendo, give us Game Boy Advance Online on the Nintendo Switch so we can play through Metroid 2 and Metroid Fusion, but you know, that's another topic. But the point is that they're really doing things to prop up this franchise, and historically, we do not see them do this, as Metroid has typically been an afterthought for Nintendo, and it historically has not sold well compared to other first-party Nintendo franchises. So to see the tune really change here, and even this being a 2.5 Metroid experience, 2.5D rather, Metroid experience that we are gearing up for, seeing Nintendo's media and marketing team handle it the way they are is very reassuring for the future of the franchise. And when you look at the graphical fidelity of this game and some of the lore that they're getting at with the new trailer that we saw today announced, which was a glimpse of Dread, I mean, they are involving the Chozo, which is a huge deal, having the Chozo alive and not just being like a historic relic like they are in most of the other games. They're going deep into the lore of this world, and you can definitely tell that Dread will be delivering on a huge story arc, as it is supposed to wrap up kind of the first, you know, initial Metroid timeline of those games being 1 through 5. So to see them push, you know, all the hype behind the first 1 through 4 and to try to get fans to go back and play those games, I think is fantastic. And then the new information we got today around Dread, we'll dive through that real quick first. They did release an entire page kind of outlining the history of the games of 1 through 4. They gave us some great new artwork that looks fantastic, and it's just really cool to see them go back and look at history as they're trying to ramp up things like the release of Dread that will be out already on October 8th, which is fastly approaching. So to see them continue to put focus on this is, 1, very good, and then 2, a big thing that I took away from reading through this article that they posted on the Metroid Dread Report Volume 4, which if you guys haven't been keeping up with, they're basically just putting out new pieces of information as we get closer and closer to the release of the game. But one thing that they did say is that similar to Super Metroid, you can actually get different abilities and upgrades before you're necessarily intended to do so, which does actually suggest that this may not be quite as linear of an experience and a little bit more of a you play it in the order you want to play it. And it might not be entirely like that, as normally you do get to points where you can't progress until you beat a certain boss or find a certain item in Metroid games. This still could be kind of a little bit of a change from the traditional formula, as the exact quote reads: "The Super Metroid game can be said to offer the greatest flexibility for exploration in the series. You can enjoy similar flexibility in the Metroid Dread game depending on how you take advantage of your abilities. You might be able to find ways to obtain weapons, items, abilities earlier than intended timing. We encourage you to try to discover alternate routes of exploration." So that for me is super exciting to hear, and you have to remember that Super Metroid is technically still one of the biggest franchise favorites, as a lot of the hardcore Metroid fan base will tell you that that is the pinnacle of success for the series and still the best overall game to this day. And while I do rank that one as my second favorite, I still love the Prime Trilogy, and specifically Metroid Prime 1 probably being my favorite Samus experience so far as a whole. But I mean, Super Metroid is an incredible game, and when you talk about the best 2D Samus or Metroid experience rather, it is definitely my top 2D experience when it comes to the Metroid franchise. So having it compared to that openly and having, you know, them so confidently speak about Dread and what it has to offer is a super exciting thing to see. And then from there, I do want to talk about the fact that Nintendo is acknowledging Metroid's 35th anniversary. And somebody that, if you don't know, if you haven't been around on the channel very long, somebody like myself as a hardcore Zelda fan, I was very surprised that on Zelda's 35th anniversary, we didn't get a tweet or a mention that it was Zelda's 35th anniversary at all. Of course, you can't argue that we are getting the Game & Watch as a commemorative event for this 35th celebration for Zelda. But the funny thing about that is, if you would have told me just a few months back that Nintendo would be acknowledging Metroid's 35th anniversary on Twitter, but they would completely skip over Zelda's, I would be like, you're crazy. Zelda's definitely going to get the full 35th anniversary blowout. And they did not, but you could argue we're still getting Zelda games. We got Skyward Sword HD. We know Breath of the Wild 2 is coming, and there's many other rumored ports and remakes that may be on the way. So I'm still happy as a Zelda fan, and you know, I'll be picking up the Game & Watch for the 35th anniversary, but I did just find it interesting how Nintendo is really acknowledging Metroid's 35th anniversary. And while we're not getting a bunch of special edition games or collection packs or even Prime Trilogy like I am hoping for to see eventually announced, I do think that this is all part of a strategy to build a bigger brand for Metroid going forward and to really put it on the map as a top system seller and a top Nintendo franchise when it comes to overall sales. So for me as a hardcore Metroid fan, to see this kind of attention from Nintendo is awesome. And I think it's something we haven't seen before. And I think it's part of their bigger plan to, again, make Dread count, make it sell very well, push it out in front of fans. And then I think that the next step for their bigger plan is to then ramp up Prime 4 as the ultimate, you know, 3D Metroid experience. And they exposed all the fans on the Switch to the 2D Metroids, and those are available. And hopefully we do get the ability to play those other two missing titles that are only available on handheld on the Switch, with something like a Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Library being added into NSO. But regardless of whether or not we see that, I do think that the next thing we're going to see for the franchise will be a launch of Metroid Prime Trilogy, which is heavily rumored to be done and ready to go, and probably just in quality assurance as far as being able to be released in the near future. And I think they do that 6 to 9 months, maybe even a year before we're ready to go with Prime 4's final release, because it just wouldn't make sense for Nintendo to expose all the new fans to the 4th installment in the Prime franchise when there's no good way to go back and play Prime 1 through 3. So all of that other speculation remains to be seen. But guys, I'm just super pumped for Metroid's 35th anniversary. I'm glad we got a shout out from Nintendo and it's being acknowledged. And I love to see all of the marketing and media hype around Dread, and I certainly think it will continue into the Prime franchise. So I want to know from you guys at this point in the video what all your thoughts and opinions are on everything we talked about today. Are you planning on picking up Metroid Dread day one? Are you pumped for the Prime franchise as a whole? And do you think that Nintendo will continue this media marketing push as we go forward with Metroid? Or do you think that this is just simply for Metroid 5, or Dread rather, being kind of closing out the original Metroid timeline, and this is maybe just a one-off scenario? Or maybe you think it depends all on the sales of Dread, which I do tend to agree with, because if Dread flops after all of this big push, well, then we might be in a different scenario as far as how much attention Nintendo gives this franchise. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below, so make sure you share all your thoughts and opinions with me on everything we talked about today, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around the topic of Metroid. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video want to invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below, hit the like button on your way out if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. That's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation, out.